So we're entering late summer here. The first few dry and brittle leaves are starting to fall. Mm, Around my neighborhood, the only thing blooming now is the crepe myrtles, and they're kind of soggy and wet and hanging down. And I saw one of my neighbors this morning. We were both walking our dogs, and he said, "I love this time of year." He really, he looked like he meant it too. He was moving slowly, he was talking slowly, he was smiling. But I find that August actually late July, August, it lands differently for me. The heavy air feels like a hot, wet sweater, and the quiet at this time of year, unlike say in January, feels kind of lonely because I think people are having fun somewhere else. And I often have this sense in July and August like I'm waiting for something. So I wanted to talk tonight about that feeling of waiting, what it is, how it makes us feel, and maybe how we want to work with it. So my family and I went to Massachusetts last week to see some relatives and hang out on the beach. And my kids have been talking about this trip since March or April. Um, they've been waiting for months. My daughter couldn't wait to see her cousins. My son couldn't wait to see his uncle and ride on a boat. They couldn't wait for the car ride where they're allowed to watch 10 straight hours of television. Then, of course, there was traffic and they couldn't wait to get there. They couldn't wait for their turn with the iPad that had the good shows on it. Every morning when we were there, my 3-year-old would burst out of her room in her swimsuit saying, "I'm ready for the beach." And she couldn't wait to go. They couldn't wait to get their sunblock on. They couldn't wait for us to drive to the beach or to stop talking to the other grown-ups before we actually walked to the beach. And then for a little while, they stopped waiting, sort of. But if I watched them closely, they were waiting for the other kids to pay attention to them. They were waiting for us to give them a snack. They were waiting for their turn with a shovel. They were waiting for the game that they actually wanted to play. Then they were waiting for the night that we'd take them out for ice cream. I think there were some moments of contented absorption, but they were checkered throughout the day. And there was a lot of actually intense, unhappy waiting in between. And one way to think of waiting, that feeling, is that it's craving. It's sort of craving made visible. Because if you aren't waiting, you're just sitting still, relaxed. That's not waiting at all. That's just contentment. But once we're waiting, it's not actually a physical experience. We think of it that way. We think, oh, if I'm in line at the grocery store, I'm waiting. If I'm in the terminal waiting for a plane that's delayed or further delayed, or the new plane after they change out the crew, right? We think of those as the moments when we're waiting, but it's not a place or an action. It's a mental state. Waiting is wanting something that hasn't happened to start, or waiting is wanting something that is happening that you don't like to stop. That's waiting. The Pali word for craving is tanha, and waiting is really any moment of the day that there's a little bit of tanha arising. It's a squeeze of the mind, a contraction, a narrowing. Our body squeezes, our perception of the world squeezes. Then it's not pleasant, right? This is the first noble truth. One way you could phrase it is the Buddha says you're going to spend a lot of your life waiting for something else. And this state, this background state of waiting, generates storylines of misfortune, victimhood, scarcity, right? It gives rise to all the afflictive emotions, self-pity, blame, resentment. I realized recently that I spent the first 6 years of fatherhood waiting for the day when I would feel well rested. And I felt a lot of anger. I was angry at my kids for waking me up. I was angry at my wife for reading too late into the evening when I wanted the lights off. I was angry at myself for being angry at everyone else. I felt so much self-pity. Uh, and I started to get more sleep, which was great. But then it plateaued, and I realized that I will never again sleep the way I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
But the big difference is I'm not waiting anymore. I was exhausted today, but it didn't bother me the way it would have a year ago, 2 years ago, because it occurred to me that if I wait any longer, I'll miss precious parts of my kids' lives, you know, that you can't get back. I might wait so long that they're out of the house or that I'm on my deathbed. And then I can smile knowing I'll rest in peace. But I'll probably feel pretty lousy that I missed my life waiting for the time when it wouldn't feel tiring. And this was a big realization for me that the tired life is the one that I get to live. And that's been one of the big freedoms that I've experienced in my practice over the last year. I still prefer the days when I have a little pep in my step, but I don't discount the days like today anymore. I'm not fighting them. And that freedom, that's what I hope this talk, this topic can help point us towards, right? You could say, sort of riffing off the earlier theme, that freedom from waiting is what the Buddha offered us. This is the third noble truth. Being able to inhabit this life you're living as it is. Nibbana is resting in the awareness that everything already is. In therapy, one way I see it is that moment when someone with chronic anxiety finally really notices their breath, not thinks about their breath or talks about breathing, but actually feels themselves breathing and feels the couch underneath them and realizes that even if their mind is telling them that some feeling in their body is a chronic health condition or that their kid's career choice is definitely not going to be okay, or whatever it is, they can sit with all of that stuff swirling in their head and realize that in this moment, right now, they are breathing and they're sitting on the couch and it's okay. And there's a little bit of freedom there. Every now and then, people will actually start to cry in that moment. To realize that they didn't have to banish all that stuff. They just had to notice that right now, even with all of it swirling around, there's a little bit of it's okay. It's the moment in the doctor's office when you notice that every muscle in your body is tense and you start to soften and settle back into your chair. It's what the teacher Locke Kelly calls the shift into freedom. But how do you do that? How do you get to that point where you can soften? Because some of us notice that we're tense in the doctor's office. We think about how tense we are and we think about the reasons we're tense, then we get tenser, right? It's not just noticing it. There's a deeper awareness that's required. Step one is noticing that we're waiting, that we're tense, that we're wanting this moment to shift. But there's more to it. Sharon Salzberg, a well-known meditation teacher in this tradition, um, tells a story about being on a retreat practicing in the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition, which is this naming technique. So when you're thinking, if you notice that you're thinking, you say thinking in your mind, not out loud. When you're walking, walking, when you're eating, eating, when you're grumpy, grumpy, whatever you notice, you just name. And she realized after a while that she was just saying waiting, 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 waiting. What am I waiting for? And that opens the door to the second step. So the first step is to notice you're waiting, but the second step is to get really curious. What am I waiting for? Because underneath that feeling of waiting, there is some pile of fears and desires that have built up. And the genius of the Buddha's teachings is that if you can bring your awareness down to that level of those fears and desires that are often operating well out of your view, you can start to feel some freedom and some peace. You don't have to resolve them. You don't have to get rid of them, but you do have to hold them in awareness. So returning to the earlier example, were my kids craving vacation because it represented an end to boredom or a break from school or time outdoors? Maybe I was looking forward to the beach because I imagined it would be a moment free of physical pain and exhaustion or family harmony where everybody's treating each other well or sustained happiness. I don't need to tell you whether those things came fully realized or not. But if I look, I can see that those are the things I really want. Those are the things that matter to me. And they're not necessarily bad. There can be this misperception that the Buddha taught that wanting anything is bad. There's nothing wrong with wanting your family to be at harmony, wanting yourself not to be in pain. But it's when those desires are just kind of like pressures on the mind that you're not seeing. That's what starts to get at us. So the Buddha said, look at it. Notice, I want so badly to not feel tired. I want so badly for my body to not ache. I want so badly for my kids to stop screaming at each other. If you can just name that and hold it out here, there starts to be a little space and a little ease. Maybe at the doctor's office, it's more about fear than desire. I'm so afraid of what I might be about to hear. I'm so afraid of how this might shift my life. I'm so afraid of dying, right? There's one that sits in the background for most of us. And to put our finger on it can actually be to realize one of the truest things about ourselves. We want, at least a part of us does, wants to keep living. And the stronger that awareness, the deeper the insight, the more those fears and desires you can bring up, the more peace starts to settle. The more the mind starts to see that even with all of those things unsettled and unresolved, the present moment somehow also feels complete. It already is. The present is fully here. And then to get a little bit technical, the mind starts to build up samadhi or collectedness. Somehow, when you name fears and desires, they stop splitting mental energy and it starts to collect. It's that feeling of coolness or settling or steadiness that comes after you meditate. You can pay attention. You all are probably paying slightly better attention to me now than you would have if I'd started talking at the beginning. The mind starts to build that collected energy. And then it has momentum, actually. The collected mind, the mind with samadhi, gets tugged by fewer fears and desires. So it builds on itself. When I come back from a long retreat, I find it very easy to be patient. I can listen to each child. I can say, I'll be with you in a moment. Hold on. They're all looking at me like, who is this guy? They love it though. This is the best version of their father. You know, within a week, I'm telling them to get lost and, cursing at red lights and all that good stuff. Under my breath, usually. And my friends have reported similar experiences, right? There's something really wonderful about collectedness building in the mind, which is why I invite you to make this practice at the end of the meditation an all-day practice, right? it's worth it. Even if you can't get to that place of sort of deep, unflappable peace, a little bit goes a long way. So waiting is this invitation, actually, to practice. Maybe you won't see all the fears and desires operating in that moment, but even if you can bring a few of them to the surface, there can be an opening. Often we teach how to deal with waiting in a very different way. I love the show Daniel Tiger. It's a spin-off of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. They took the puppet character Daniel Tiger and made him into an animated main character for those of you who aren't currently watching PBS Kids. And he's great. He teaches all kinds of social and emotional lessons to kids. And one of them is a little song when you, I won't sing it, when you wait, you can play, sing, or imagine anything. Right? This is how we teach kids how to wait. Is distract yourself. And it's true that it works, but it has its limits. It's what the Gen Zers would call a cope. Because eventually the game becomes tedious, the song becomes annoying, or your imagination starts turning back to the craving, right? It's the reason the iPad in the car for 10 hours actually runs out of steam and the kids start griping again. Coping can't last forever. And the Buddhist hypothesis is that awareness, bringing our desires into our conscious awareness, holding them gently with compassion, that actually doesn't run out of steam. Just the opposite, it builds on itself, right? And so you can use the copes, but oftentimes it's a missed opportunity actually to do a deeper, more sustainable type of work. So imagine four people sitting at a stoplight. One of them's afraid of missing their event. They have people they want to talk to, things they want to get done, and they're tense and agitated, right? They're waiting and unaware. The second one has nowhere in particular to be other than home, watering their plants. Maybe they're daydreaming, imagining the things they'll make for dinner, a little craving in the mind, but nothing to upset them. If anything, it's kind of a titillating distraction at the stoplight. The third person is also late to an event of consequence, but they're watching their mind. They're engaged with the fears and desires. They've taken this moment at the stoplight to turn inward and be curious about what's going on in their psyche. Their fears, their desires don't dissolve, but they're held in this sense of balance in the universe. This is all just part of a lived experience and they're in it. They get a little bit of that sense of witnessing. The fourth person has nowhere to be, but they're aware of this. So they actually are experiencing a mind free, at least temporarily, of fears and desires, and they're thrilled. They're deeply at peace. Because not only are they getting a sweet moment of relaxation, but they're allowing it to permeate their being. Right? So whether the fears and desires are really coming at you strong or whether they're entirely gone, adding awareness is only going to be to your benefit. Bob Dylan actually recently described this very well. Back in June, the New York Times invited several famous octogenarians to opine on the experience of being 80 years old or older. And Dylan was one of the people they interviewed. And a little clip from it, he said, "The best thing about being 80 is that you outlive the clocks that have been chasing you. It's freedom from that lie that anything was ever under control. You don't chase the parade anymore. You're an old king from some vanquished country." So for all of you who are still chasing the parade, myself included, the invitation is just to get curious about the fears and desires that are motivating you. Can you watch them arise in the mind and the body in real time? Can you see what's here for you right now? And for all of you who are old kings and queens from vanquished countries, or maybe it was vanished countries, same, same. Can you celebrate that peace? right? Can you join Bob Dylan and say, this is kind of nice, actually? So here's the invitation, right? The next time you find yourself waiting, oh, my hands are a little tight on the steering wheel, kind of keep taking that half step to the door, hoping somebody will join me, right? Waiting for this conversation to be over. You might just do a quick check. Am I in pain? Am I tired? Am I believing that some future event is going to have a big impact on my life? Am I afraid that if I don't move fast, I'm going to fail or ruin something? And you don't have to talk yourself out of that. Just notice it. Notice what you're afraid of. Notice what you want. Make a little space for that. The question itself begins this process of meditative inquiry and starts the mind towards that path of cultivating awareness and samadhi. And if you do it enough, you might really start to get this taste of freedom. Any thoughts, observations, questions, curiosities? Yeah.
I was.
Oh, we have a microphone.
Could you? I can use, of course.
Yeah.
People online. Oh, okay. So I was mentioning my group. There's something you said that rang in me. What you said that waiting is kind of a second stage, and I believe it's true because there's this one stage where if you're completely caught up in your mind, you don't realize you're waiting. So you can be in a traffic jam and everything feels all right. But in the reality, it's because in your mind you say, oh, I have to order the pizza, or my kids I have to do this and that and that. And so you don't know you're waiting for 1,000 things. So it's important to quiet the mind enough and be able to spot everything that how the mind is doing, so that when the mind is quiet, that's where the waiting is coming up.
Right.
And so you said that very well, and I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Yeah, traffic can be great, especially if you don't want to get where you're going. In the back. Mike, would you mind passing the?
Sure. Who wants it?
Oh, okay.
I just noticed that when you notice you're waiting, it's like it takes you out of the tunnel, kind of gives you more space. Then you can observe it and yeah, I experience a little bit more freedom from it.
Yeah, just that initial observation even can start to get things going. That's right.
Because without noticing, then you're just in it.
You're just tense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thanks.
Other thoughts, observations, questions, curiosities?
For me, I wasn't using the word waiting. It was more sort of anticipatory trauma of what might happen, dread. But as I'm thinking about it even now, I'm thinking there's that expression, anything can happen to anybody at any time, which makes me think that waiting is a certain discomfort with uncertainty. And my practice is really focusing more and more on becoming comfortable with uncertainty. And that, in a way, dissipates the notion of waiting.
That's right.
Because who knows?
Yeah, you don't even know what you're waiting for because anything could be coming down the pipe. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that.
I'll build on that. My fellow group member over here. It occurred to me in your sharing of your waiting to not be tired anymore. It was kind of postponing happiness and contentment, right? I'll only be happy when I'm sleeping well again. And that's one big reason that I come to meditation and mindfulness, right? Is to not postpone, that it's always here for the taking. And I read your telling of the story of your kids and the beach, and which was so cute and lovely and made me reminiscent. That to me, that was more like anticipating joy, like nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with, they weren't sort of not enjoying the car ride because they weren't at the beach yet. It was like,
Well,
maybe. Like they just weren't going to be happy until they were at the beach with the ice cream in their hand, or,
exactly. Yeah.
and there's joy to be had by being with each other and fighting until then. So yes, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I enjoy all your stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that.
Um, Hi, I'm Ramona. Uh, I think the thing that I'm drawing out of this is that waiting is sort of when your mind is an imagined future, whether that's good or bad, and you can imagine something that's going to be really good that doesn't meet your expectations when it comes to the moment that you're in it, and or imagine something bad that might happen. Um, the ability to sort of put something off into the future that you want when, if you think about it, you can have it now just by taking a step towards it. Like you want a great new job, or you want to lose 20 pounds, or you want to get more rest, like go lay down. Snuggle up with all the kids and, go to sleep. But I get this idea that it is about like having your brain not be in this moment, but be in some future moment, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. And Ramona, you bring up a really important point, which is that sometimes we don't realize we're waiting. We do, we turn our attention to it. And actually the thing we want is imminently solvable, right? Like we might be feeling all this impatience and it turns out we just have to pee. And you can go do that and come back and all of a sudden the moment feels fine, right? So sometimes asking that question actually brings up fears and desires that can be addressed right now and really improve the quality of life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think, yeah. And we can even commit to making the changes we need to make for those underlying fears and desires, and also sort of hold the fact that we may or may not get to the end of that process. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. So I I was thinking about this. My practice has definitely been focusing on the aspect of um, waiting. I've been told by people that I need to stop waiting to be happy when this happens, or I'm pushing off my happiness, and I agree with them. I tend to continue to be, oh, I can be happy when, and then in this, I have also kind of found myself where I will stack my schedule to just completely to the brim almost to put more things to wait for, but to decrease the amount of time between the waiting. And I am almost I've been thinking about this more recently in the sense of, well, what is the balance there of making almost, what am I, what am I like waiting? What am I waiting for? But also, why do I need to minimize the distance? I guess.
Right. What are some of those fundamental discomforts that just like filling every moment of the day with a new cycle of like
Yeah.
craving and delivery? Like what's underneath that that's hard to be with?
Yeah.
And I think you're putting your finger on something that's really important for a lot of us, right? We try to build a life where we don't have to wait for anything, right? We don't even have to wait for the workout to be over because we're watching television while we're on the treadmill, right? It's like, how many different things can we have going on so that we're fundamentally distracted from this experience of craving?
But the entire time you are still craving.
Right.
So
The craving is just
it's a
sitting under there
cycle.
and building. And something, one of the real like uh pain points of social media, and I don't see this talked about a lot, but I've had clients recently describe, they say, I can't quit Instagram because I am worried I'll miss some interesting piece of architecture or art or song by an artist or thing my friends are talking about. But then when I'm on it, I'm creating 1,000 different things I want to do with my life and doing none of them. I'm just moving to the next thing I want to do with my life. So by the time I get off my phone after 2 hours, I want to do 1,000 things, and I'm even further from having done one.
Yeah.
And it creates this awful feeling in my body, right? So social media, it's like this, at least your full day, you can look back at the end of the day and be like, I did 8 things. But social media is like, it creates the engine of waiting without any release.
hmm
So painful. Yeah. Yeah.
The dopamine hunt.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
I love that discussion. It's just, and thank you for bringing up and connecting it to the experience of being on retreat earlier,
Oh, yeah.
because that's what's really coming up in me right now. The discussion was, I could feel it heading toward this notion of we're all becoming like dopamine addicts and social media, and there's other things. Social media is just sort of the most obvious example, but we're losing the ability to just sit peacefully and have nothing. It's
Yeah.
like our brain is telling us all the time. It's like, don't just sit there, pull out your phone. There's interesting stuff going on Instagram. Um, and so the experience when you're on retreat, I think not enough people until they've like done a couple of retreats really fully appreciate the power of going for a week completely unplugged.
Right.
And a lot of people anticipate that it's like, oh gosh, how am I going to live without my phone? Yeah, I don't think I can do it. I'm going to pull out my phone. I'm going to have to check email. And when you make yourself do that, it's really transformative. And it's something that I think in modern society, we have a really basic need for this that we're not getting, of
Yeah.
having that experience of not satisfying the constant dopamine hit.
Right. Right. We've become so good at getting stimulation that the gap between waiting for stimulation and getting it is almost zero now. But it's creating this sort of funky mind state where the stimulation isn't really enough. And so you have to remove it, go back to that feeling of actually waiting for something interesting to happen and sit with it long enough that the mind starts to quiet, right? And really can explore some of the deeper things beneath there. Yeah, no, retreat is really the only place I've ever been that allows for that process to happen. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Neil. One thing I'll throw out there too, in response to some earlier comments, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't have it in front of me, but maybe 3, 4 years ago, they were doing a study of the emotions that people feel, and I think it was with a Scandinavian population. And what they found was later in life, older people were able to experience uh, more complex emotions. They could have the experience of like joy while in pain, or the experience of sadness and satisfaction, right? And there was a way that as what we might call wisdom grew in the mind or insight grew in the mind, there was an ability to be at peace even with the incompleteness of things, right? I sort of think of that at the opposite end of the spectrum of my children in the car with the iPad wanting the ice cream, right? Like, there is a way that as we age, even if we're not practicing the Dharma or doing this stuff consciously, I think we start to learn how to settle into, right, the incomplete experience of right now, the uncertainty of this life. So just to throw that in there too. Yeah. Maybe time for one one last one, two last ones, Joe? And if anybody online wants anything, let me know.
So I had two thoughts that occurred to me after our group met. The first is that I was recently stuck on a plane waiting to take off, waiting to go on a vacation to Europe. And there were thunderstorms just pouring down, and we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And then I realized this is an opportunity to watch a World Cup game on my phone using the internet that was still free because we were still in the airport. And so all of a sudden I said, I'm just going to enjoy watching the game, which I did. And I was like, I hope we wait as long, for the game to be over, which we did, because we ended up waiting 4 hours on the tarmac. But I was happy because I was watching this game. It was a really good game too. I think it was Mexico versus England or
That
something.
was a
like
good
that.
game.
That was a good game, yeah.
Yeah.
So when we finally took off, I was like, okay, I'm good with this. I was happy with the experience, and I was just in the moment enjoying the game. So that was great. The other thought I had is completely unrelated, except that it relates to waiting. I just remembered that old song by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, The Waiting. And the lyric from that is, or the part I'm remembering is, the waiting is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Every day you get one more yard or something like that. But that's really to the point.
I appreciate that, Joe. I think
Yeah.
Tom Petty was onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe that's a good place, unless there's one last question. No? Okay. So we can move to, thank you. Wrapping up. One thing, that I'll add to this mix too, is that being with other people, being around people you trust and care about, it really feels good. It relaxes the body, it relaxes the mind, it creates a sense of completeness and wholeness, right? So another helpful antidote to waiting is good company. Um, and there's a way in which like being together as a group tonight was really had a particularly nice feeling. I think there's just a good energy in the room and even online here too, right? It's a nice thing. And you can sort of feel the way that allows us to settle into the present. Um, and so taking note of that. And one thing I like to do to sort of celebrate that or build on that is to invite you, if you feel comfortable, turning to somebody sitting next to you and thanking them for showing up to help build this community together. So thank you all online. Yeah.